Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Handmaid's Tale Season 2, Episode 3. It is called Baggage. We don't bring anything like that to this show, do we? We don't have any
No, no,
awful,
there's
awful
nothing
baggage.
between us.
No, just seething hatred. Anyway, so full spoilers for the episode, as always. And, I felt like this episode was like a journey, and it was literally a journey, but like I felt like the number of locations June went through by the time we got to the end, I'm like, man, I'm so used to this show being like just the same house, the same little like, handmade sort of area at the school
Yeah,
or
yeah, a couple
whatever.
of little areas.
Yeah, I'm so used to like the same two or three areas that having this many locations was feeling really strange. But it did
Was
help build the world up a little bit in the mythology, because we talked a lot last season about how it kept adding on new layers of, okay, so how's this world working? Because, okay, we've got this little narrow window of what's going on, but it's all from the handmaid perspective. And one of the things we questioned a lot last season is, well, is everyone a commander and then everyone has a handmaid and all the women who aren't married are handmaids? And we weren't sure about the specifics of that stuff, and this episode seems to kind of embellish that a little bit. And there are couples, there are families that are around.
yeah,
Seemingly, the ones who are picked for handmaids are the ones who these seem unfit in some way, whether it's because they're gay or because their religion or just because of things they've done in their past. We find out. I mean, this was probably implied before, but we find out that like, having an abortion on your record is just immediate colony. Like
yeah.
you killed a child, you sentenced to death basically immediately. So I was filling out that stuff a little bit more.
Mm, yeah.
Kind of like that. So, yeah, where to begin? So, obviously there was some stuff in Canada as well, but we'll save that
Yeah,
till
it's
later, I
very
think.
separate, isn't it?
I think we'll stick with June, who, she's in the Boston Globe, and we see that she's jogging. We find out a little bit later on that it's been 2 months. There's been a 2 month time jump,
Yeah.
which I think is very notable. Given that she's pregnant, I feel like there might be time jumps here or there throughout the season.
I can see, the season taking place over the 9 months,
Yeah,
give or take.
yeah, I really can. But she's not quite showing yet. She's still, she's running around, she's doing that stuff, and we see that her mural has kind of like grown and she's kind of added more to it. We also see she's become, because she's had no time, or she's had nothing but time, she's basically just kind of looking through the archives of the newspaper and listening to like interviews and recordings and looking at all their notes and stuff, and it's almost like she's obsessing over how the world got this way, because she's not really had time to maybe process it up, because up until now she's been too busy being scared and trying to like
Mm.
survive or trying to not not be suicidal or whatever. Like there's the turmoil she's been through, where she's actually had some time over this 2 months to just actually sit and process what's.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah. And we hear these different recordings, and it leads into flashbacks of the episode, which is us getting to know her mother, in the name of Holly. Uh,
She's kind of a dick.
she is kind of a dick, and this is actually, I believe, I mean, I don't know if these scenes specifically are from the book, but I do know that the one thing that was left out of season one in the flashbacks was her relationship with her mother, which was part of the book. I know that much.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, alright, so that's still pulling some stuff from the book, and someone did comment saying our mother in the book was this activist, and this was like kind of the backstory. So at least again they're keeping that. And what I thought was really interesting about all this is that I liked that she was kind of layered in that. Okay, everything she's fighting for is just. She's got points that are valid,
Yeah.
but she is a complete dick about it. And when she tries to like overstep into June's life and say, "Oh, you shouldn't get married to that guy," like, "Oh, you're giving your life up to a man," and it's just, I think this episode was showing that okay, too far in the other direction perhaps is also not exactly
No,
appealing.
yeah, yeah. You can't say it's just as bad given where
It's
we've
not. It's not
ended up,
just as bad. That's no, like,
but it's not good either. Is the point? It's
yeah.
still controlling.
Yeah, she's trying to control June and you should be this, you should do that. And it's like, no, no. The whole point is she has the freedom to choose what she does with her life. She has the freedom to be one thing or the other.
Yeah.
And but it was layered because the whole episode. Because when we get to the end, and she's talking about how she hopes one day Hannah can forgive her, and I wish I could tell my mother I forgive her as well. But I like that it wasn't just in retrospect. She's like, oh, my mother was like right all along. I should have listened to her and been an activist, and I should have done all these things. It's more layered than that, and I like
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
not just clearly right and wrong. It's shades of grey, shades of
Yeah, because it's not even
everything. So
saying that she was right. She's saying I forgive her, but that doesn't mean
yeah.
she was necessarily that she thinks she was right. She can just have, okay, it's not important anymore. I've got past it.
Oh sure, yeah. I mean, she wasn't. I mean, she was definitely right to be concerned,
Oh yeah, yeah,
given where the world has went. clearly. She vindicated
Yeah.
in that sense, I think one would say. But
Right, and but this is the thing. I think June always agreed with her in principle,
oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
And it was the way that she didn't like her forcing it onto her to change her choices. So I think now what she's forgiven her for is that specifically, isn't
Oh,
it? It
absolutely,
doesn't
yeah.
really matter.
No, I agree with that. I think a big part of it is kind of accepting, or maybe acknowledging, like, because I think before maybe she just hated her mother, she just held this grudge with her mother on how she was, and didn't see the positive qualities, didn't see the. Because obviously we get some other flashbacks where they're singing in the car and they're having this friendly drive and.
Yeah, it was Hollaback Girl. Was that song in it last season? Because for some reason it was really like I was just like I remember it being like, I was like, oh yeah, this might have been a thing, but I don't know if it was this show or not.
I don't know the song enough to recognise it, so.
Fair enough.
So you're asking the wrong guy, but yeah, there was lots of little things that came out of this. Like she sort of like self-reflecting and just the idea that before, because there's a big moment in the episode where she decides to take action. She's not just going to wait around, and then that kind of goes back again to before where she almost ignored the problems until it was too late, and she's kind of choosing this time to try and take action. Now, ultimately, it's futile. I mean, we get to the end of the episode, of course, it all comes crashing down anyway, and we'll get to the sort of details of that. But I think this was an interesting exploration of just people who have the wrong ideas, the right ideas, go about them the right way and the wrong way, and how those can mix and match, and how they can have varying degrees, and how there's no just absolute right thing.
Definitely.
There's definitely absolutes in the sense of absolutely women should not be handmaids. Yes,
Yeah.
clearly, but it was looking at the complexities a little bit more of that and just the interpersonal relationship side, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the idea that someone can be objectively right in their opinions, in their morals, but they can be wrong in the way that they express those and go about enforcing them, etc.
Yeah, because there's even there's a flashback at one point to the early Handmaid days when she's with Moira and they're being trained.
Yeah.
And that lady is one of the things they critique, and we don't obviously they mentioned this last season, but just for the context of this, they critique that no one was paying attention to the climate and the fact that the world was getting destroyed and no one was really caring about it. And again, these methods of how they're going about fixing it or battling it now, yes, not the right way to go about it. But you can't deny that that's an issue that most people who sympathise with it would so yeah, we should probably pay more attention to climate
should do
change.
something.
Yes.
But not this.
Not this, not sending people who you deem to be concentration camp worthy to go and die slowly as they process it.
Yes, and enemies of the state, as it were.
Yeah, so bunch of awful stuff. In fact, clicking out of this team, I want to jump over to a Moira scene actually, because I think the whole idea of like there being good people, bad people, right ideas, wrong ideas, and not necessarily attached in the way that you would think they would be. There's a scene where she's actually now working for the refugees coming in. She's actually there to greet them and talk them through the process, because she's like, oh yeah, when I arrived, I was like a zombie. It's hard to process. You're going through all your emotions. And the guy she's talking to, I thought was interesting because he was one of the what was the word he used? Guardians. He was one of the guards who sort of around and enforced the rules.
The soldiers, essentially.
Yeah. And he was like, oh yeah, it was awful. They were making us do all these things. And it was kind of this thing like, I think because of the context of this show and the eyes we've seen it through, we've always just kind of seen them as villainous. We've never stopped to consider that some of them are actually doing this because they're scared of what will happen if they don't.
Yeah, and I think he was saying he used to be just, he was a soldier, he was in the army. And then it just kind of got converted into this one day. It just, and they didn't necessarily notice because it was like, they follow orders as soldiers. That's what they're supposed to do. And
it was kind of like
sudden...
last episode with the airport, how the guy at the front seemed like a decent guy who was just doing his job. But then they got into the further in bit, with the actual desk, and the guy was just completely believed in everything they were doing, all the rules. He was like a diehard believer. And it's clearly showing that there's different increments. So, and again, I think that's interesting. But this guy's like, oh yeah, like we were hanging bodies, and he's like breaking down, and Moira's practically breaking down as he's telling her this. Like she's like, oh, we've got counselling on floor 3. You just go there. Don't talk to me about this, please.
I think it's the idea that there are a lot of people involved, and individually, none of them are standing up, right? And you can look at them and say, well, you should be standing up. You're in a position of power. You've got guns, and etc. But at the end of the day, he feels that he's on his own, right?
Yeah.
And because there is no organized resistance as most of them know it. There's just kind of bits here or bits there, escapes here.
Yeah.
So they feel equally as trapped, even though they're not in as awful a position.
And in the same case, obviously we'll get to how we get there, but we get to this family who kind of helped June for a little bit in the middle of the episode. And again, it feels like, he's like part of the resistance in his own like sort of anonymous way because he was going to transport her, but the wife is like shocked and appalled to see like June in her home, and she's like keeping her son away from him, and obviously June's seeing like them put the shoes on, it's reminding her of her own daughter, and all these little moments. But there's this great thing where they go out to church. It's like mandatory church to like prove that they're devoted and everything else, and they're going out, and she's actually just sort of looking around the house. She's tidying up, and she hides under the bed at one point because there's someone outside, and she finds a Quran and like a prayer mat. And it's like, no, even these people are hiding things. Like, they're still scared of being found. Like, everyone is scared of being...
That's it, because we know that the religion of the state is some variation upon Christianity. Mm-hmm. We kind of got that last season. But I think this is even the most explicit we've got that, even any hint of other religions are completely outlawed. I mean, it was assumed, but we never saw any of it, because, again, June never saw any of it.
Yeah. And it's this idea that even people who you think are not necessarily benefiting, but seem to be doing okay in this society, are all hiding things. That this society is benefiting no one but the people who actually have the power, and are the commanders, the higher ups, and everyone else in some way is hiding something. Some obviously, I'm not saying that this family's given up as much as someone like June has, because June has went through absolute hell, but everyone's living in fear.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting when eventually we inevitably come across a commander who is more sympathetic. I'm sure they're going to do it, and I'm really intrigued to see how they manage to do that and make it seem genuinely sympathetic, because it's a hard task to pull off.
Yeah, either a commander who's sympathetic or is outright part of the resistance. Like, that could be a great twist moment, as you think a commander's got her and something like, oh, you've been caught doing something, or... And then it turns out, no, he's actually, like, high up in the inside, if you will.
It kind of feels like an obvious thing to do, right? At some point.
At some point, yeah.
And I'm okay with that. This isn't one of those, it's obvious, so don't do it. It's, no. There's so much potential in that they're bound to do it.
And I think it pokes fun at tropes as well, because there's a scene later on where, June's narrating, and she's talking about how the irony that she's been raised to be independent and strong and fierce and all that, but... She's in this world now where she's constantly waiting on men to save her, and it's not because she's not strong and independent. It's just because this is a society that's more.
It's this or nothing.
Yeah, and again, it's like sort of like this is what the men in power want: is they want women to feel like they have to be saved by men because otherwise they're screwed on their own. And it's a complete fabrication of power because they're enforcing it.
Yes, exactly.
So. No, it's and again, that's the thing. Fear is power. Fear. People feared, or having fear of being found out for their religion, found out for having their sexuality, whatever it may be, all over the place. Like, everyone is being controlled by fear. And then in the middle of this episode, you've just got this suspenseful tale of June. She's taken from the Boston Globe, and I liked when she was leaving the Globe. She was kind of looking around, and it was almost like this is almost home because she's been here for 2 months, and it's kind of safe, and she's kind of almost bonded with all the people who were here because she heard their voices, she read their articles, and so and obviously we never mentioned this last episode, but presumably the reason why they were all just killed is, I imagine, this was a paper that was not exactly for the new regime.
Well,
maybe spoke out against it.
The Globe has a reputation in itself.
Yeah,
and I imagine this kind of happened to a lot of the press, the free press at least, anyway.
Yeah,
is they didn't take it lightly because that side of the press can be very liberal and outspoken.
Well, yeah, again, it's a symbol of freedom, free speech, all that, everything.
Right, exactly, and of course that's going to backfire for them in that sort of scenario.
Yeah, so she goes on the truck. She's told to wait here, and she's actually dropped off. The man is very nice from the truck. He drops her off. So, okay, someone will be here soon. I don't know where you're going, because this is the thing we're getting, is that the resistance, they're all very like, no one knows each other. They don't know each other's names.
Yeah.
At one point, she says, "Oh, do you know when Nick will see me?" He's like, "Who's Nick?" He doesn't even know who Nick is.
Yeah, it very much feels like cells, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like they're operating independently of each other. There's probably someone clearly above them sending the orders out who knows. Okay, telling them go and meet at this place at this time, but individually they know nothing.
So she dropped off, and this was fascinating because this was a building where they'd stored, because they'd taken down all the road signs, and this is a building with all the road signs from the state, or at least the surrounding cities, and she's just looking at all these road signs. And this was another like fascinating idea of like, oh yeah, like someone had to go around and take all these down, and this is where they all are. And of course, a little on the nose, but I can't deny that it was effective. Is she lands on Salem? There's this, the sign for Salem. And it's like, yeah, it's worse than the witch trials at this point, but this is essentially the new version of it.
It is. It's being hunted for doing nothing, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously the resistance member who shows up, who's part of the family, that never got a name. I don't think, did he ever give his name? I don't think he did.
Omar, I think. The wife said it at some point, I think.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, he never said his name to her though. He never like offered it up.
He never introduced himself, no, but I think she said it.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Because another powerful scene is that he's about to take her. He's like, okay, there's going to be a plane here. There's a runway. It does a lot of back and forth, black market goods, that kind of thing. And we're going to sneak you off in that. And then he gets a text, essentially, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I have to leave you." And he's just like, "I'm so sorry, but I need to go." And
safe house isn't safe anymore.
And he gets in his truck. He's going to go, and she just like pleads. She gets out in front of the car. She's banging the window. She just stands there. There's that great shot where she's just standing in front of the truck, and the headlights are kind of giving her a silhouette almost.
Yeah.
And she's just mouthing the word "please" over and over again. She is so helpless, and he gets angry, slams, hits his wheel, not because he's angry at her for stopping him, but because he's angry because he knows he can't live with himself if he doesn't do it.
He's angry at himself for being too much of a good person, essentially.
Yeah, because he knows he puts himself in danger, which is why his wife is upset when she's at the house. And we get all this stuff, and her big plan when she's sick of waiting is she steals some clothes from the wife to look like they all dress, and she just walks outside, and it's this great thing. The music's really tense as she's coming down the stairwell, and where the camera's outside, we're sort of following her down the stairwell outside from the windows, and then when she gets out the front door, music goes away, silence, and really she's just walking down the path. Other wives are around. There's guys with the guns, of course, and she's just walking. And honestly, I was just like tense the entire time. Like, she's walking out of this building, she gets to the train, she's on the train, she sits down on the train, she's trying to sneak a look at the map that she got from the guy, and she's the whole thing.
You're just waiting for someone to catch her, aren't
you? You're just waiting for it. And she says some of the phrases, blessed day, oh thank God it's not raining, all the stuff that we've heard her say before as a handmaid. She's using it all to try and get away. And what I think is really powerful about this episode is that she ultimately decides, because there were several moments towards the end, she gets to the guy at the plane and she's like proving that she's a handmaid, and then there's this other driver, kind of like Nick, but he's trying to escape as well, so they're both going, and the plane's spinning up, and she's having her flashbacks, she's talking about her mother, and there's several moments where she's thinking of her daughter, she's thinking of Hannah.
Yeah.
And I kept waiting for the moment where she says, "Hey, stop the plane," because I was really expecting the end of this episode to be the choice to stay because she needs to get her daughter somehow. That's what I was expecting the ending to be.
I was just waiting because I was like, this is going too well. Something's going to go wrong.
That is also fair, because it was funny, because halfway through this I was kind of thinking like, okay, she did the whole thing where she burned her handmaid outfit and all the rest of it, and we said, okay, she doesn't want to go back to that ever, she's done with that. That doesn't necessarily mean that she won't go back to that if she's caught, and honestly I was thinking of the potential of what happens if she does get caught and goes back. And she does get caught, of course, at the end of the episode. And all I can honestly, my big worry now, I am terrified of Serena Joy and Aunt Lydia next episode. I am absolutely terrified of what they're going to do.
Yeah, and I think something is particularly interesting is I think it was the wife of the family. She said to us like I could never give up my baby. I'd kill myself before I did that. And she says I used to think that, but she doesn't anymore.
And I think that's the powerful thing, because I was expecting the moment of, no, stop the plane, I need to get out, I'm not going. I was expecting that, and instead what they gave me was her saying, I hope Hannah can forgive me one day for this. She actually accepts that she is going to leave her daughter behind to escape. She makes that choice, and then she's caught anyway. That is, like, this show is very good at giving you hope and then pulling you back down again. And this episode might have been the most, like, concentrated dose of hope for a long time, because it was all hope.
It's going pretty smoothly, even when something goes wrong, and you with the guy in the van, he's like, can't drop you off. Sorry, I'm leaving you here. even when that starts, it kind of doesn't last that long until, okay, all right, fine, he's going to take her, and it's like, okay, it's not the plan, but it's still going
And
okay.
of course, logistically, I'm thinking, well, what is the show if she actually does get out and goes to Canada at this point? Like, what was the show after that?
The rebellion, trying to get more people out, her
Yeah, I
coming
mean,
back to
that's
fight, I guess.
yeah. So I don't know. So obviously, in a logistical point of view, it makes sense for her to go back. But I think it's really cruel. I think it's cruel that she makes the choice to leave her daughter behind, and then she has to stay anyway, and she
It's
has
the
to
way
live with
she
that.
gets so far as well.
Yeah. So it's really really sad and depressing. This show, I feel like I need antidepressants after watching it every time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man, I'm not looking forward to. I mean, I am, but I'm not with Lydia is going to be a nightmare next week.
Pretty much. Her one thing is, okay, she's pregnant still, so there's still a limit to how much they can do to her right now.
For 7 months,
Yeah,
yes.
we have seen the limit. Admittedly, we saw what they did to that other woman. Yeah, where she
Which is
was,
a good point.
chained up.
She theoretically should just go back. But she should be just put in that situation right away, right? After trying to escape like this.
You'd think.
I don't think it actually will go down that path because I think the show. I think we may get an episode of her in that situation, and then like eventually, like the commander and Serena will insist that she comes back home.
I'll say the argument for the reason that she's not is that the woman who is in there, she tried to kill the baby, essentially, right?
That's true. Yeah, she
uh,
didn't try to kill the baby. She just tried to run. Yeah.
she tried to run, but she never tried to kill herself. She never tried to kill the baby. She never harmed it. So, that might get her some leeway.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Bizarrely, yes, but yeah.
Yeah. As much leeway as this is going to count, I'm not sure, but so it's not just that.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. So yeah, all the stuff with June was great, and her mother was great too. What I thought was great is that sometimes the stuff with her mother in the flashbacks was very on the nose, but that was kind of the point because that's who her mother is that everything's about the cause and the activists, and so all that played really well. And I think it's actually really impressive that this show in particular challenges the idea of someone who is too much of an activist, because in the context of this show, arguably no one should feel like that. Everyone should be like gung-ho about changing things because it's
They should be, and yeah, like in theory, you should be entirely on her side. It's like, she's right, we know she's right, because look what happened.
yeah.
But you still kind of go, she's kind of a dick, though.
I like that she responds to this. She's kind of a dick.
But that's the point, right?
Yeah.
You like I say, you're supposed to feel like this, that like she's right no matter what. But she is she's not being just as bad, but she is being controlling to a fault where she really shouldn't be.
She's being controlling to the point where she's basically pushing her daughter away.
Yeah, she's pushing her agenda, which is admittedly a better agenda, but she is still saying, no, you can't marry this guy because that defeats the whole argument of our cause. We would, you can't just give yourself up to someone. Whereas June's like, do you know what? No, I like him. I want to get married to him. This is cool. This is my choice.
Yeah. So no, all that stuff was really fascinating. And the stuff with Cat, obviously, we talked about the scene with Moira and the new refugee, but we also see with Luke's friend who doesn't talk, Erin, I think her name is.
Sure. The one fantastic line.
Yeah, it's because I was like, oh, she doesn't talk. Yeah, that's right. And then at the end of the episode, when everyone comes back, and she's just like, what was it?
Was it the Praise Be one? Praise Be.
Yeah, praise be these Fruit Lips or whatever.
Yeah.
And just makes everyone laugh. I'm like, okay, she keeps the comments locked and loaded. She's like, all right, they'll be more effective if I only say one line every 2 weeks. But when I say that
Silent
line,
Bob.
yeah, it'll be hilarious.
I know you hate that analogy.
I also don't get the reference, honestly. But does he say things eventually?
Yeah. The whole point, Jay and Silent Bob is he talks constantly, and Bob says like one thing per movie, and it's a joke that he'll say something like really important, and he thinks that whatever he says is really important because he only ever speaks so rarely.
Okay. The one other notable scene though with this, obviously Moira going through her own sort of PTSD, I guess we'll call it for lack of a better term right now. is that she's in a bar, and it was funny because I actually wasn't sure if this was a flashback at first. I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be. It's in Canada. She can be at a bar.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And she starts making eyes with this woman across the counter, and they end up having some sex in like a bathroom downstairs. It's like, underneath the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all one sided. She's just kind of like pleasuring the other woman, and then after she's done, the other woman's like, oh, now your turn. She's like, nah, I'm good. And it's kind of awkward. It's kind of cold, and the other woman leaves, and she immediately washes her hands. And the other big notable thing, of course, is she gives the name Ruby. She doesn't give her a real name. She gives the name that she was using in the Jezebel's place.
Which, I'm not going to lie, I'm really glad that was in the previous Leon.
I agree. I think they were smart to put that there. I would never have remembered that was the name she used there.
When it was in the previous Leon, I assumed it was just reminding us that she worked in the club, which is, fair enough. But they obviously used that specifically, like that point of her saying that name, just so that this moment plays, in case you forgot, because I might have forgotten that that's what her other name was.
Oh, I definitely forgot that's what her other name was.
Like I said, but if I'd heard it, I might have remembered and gone, that's what she was called, or I might have just gone, oh, she's just given a fake name. I don't know which way I've landed.
So what do you think this means, her giving that name specifically? Because my mind went kind of racing after this. I was trying to kind of like, not diagnose, that's the wrong word, but try to kind of analyse where her character was at this point. I think the first more obvious one to go to is that she feels kind of disgusted with herself, so she's given herself the name of when she felt that way.
I think there's that. I think there's also an element of, there was some element of safety in the club compared to just being out everywhere else. There was a strict rule set. She knew what she could do, what she couldn't do. She got used to it, and now the freedom essentially is scary. Yeah,
it's basically that prisoner thing that some prisoners get, where if they're in prison for decades, then they come out, they actually want to go back because they
don't know how to function in society. And I think that's kind of how Moira feels. Is she doesn't really know what to do with herself in Canada. She just doesn't know how to live anymore.
Yeah, she's trying to help new refugees, and that's a noble cause and one that makes sense. And she's almost pretending that she's okay by doing that. But clearly, when the refugee earlier on starts talking to her about everything, she can't handle it. Yeah. So no, I think that's a good reading on it. And it's actually kind of funny to see this weird living arrangement with the three of them, essentially just being roommates. It's just kind of a funny thing.
It is, yeah.
Interesting thing, and obviously we knew it was Canada when we first saw her because there was snow.
Global warming ain't got nothing for Canada.
Actually, that's something that made me laugh, actually, is when she's talking to the refugee. Oh, you come to Canada, they'll give you some maple syrup and you'll be on your way. I'm just kidding, don't actually give you maple syrup. I'm like, no, if I land on Canada, I want maple syrup handed to me as soon as I set foot in the ground.
I think that should be the case now.
It should be.
Just, at every Canadian airport, when you go through to collect your baggage, here you go, here's some syrup.
Yeah.
Every time.
And if it's Canada Day, if you happen to land on Canada Day, they should be singing the national anthem as they hand you the maple syrup.
Joel, I couldn't even tell you what Canada Day is.
Oh, I don't know what date it is. I just know the national anthem starts with "Oh Canada."
Yeah, that's as far as I can do.
That's as much as I know. Yeah. I'm not making fun of Canada, by the way. I quite respect Canada land.
Yeah. I'll laugh at the French Canadian side. It's just stupid. But...
Canada gets so much shit from Americans, but honestly, rest of the world,
reasonable.
Rest of the world, I think, looks at Canada and goes, "Yeah, you're actually the decent, the decent side of it all."
yeah, definitely.
Hey, so is that episode 3? Did we wrap that up?
Covered it. Yeah,
covered that with the maple syrup and stuff. So there you go. That is baggage. And of course, that's because June has baggage, Moira has baggage, everyone in this episode has baggage. Not literal baggage though, because June is travelling very light. She has no bags with her.
No. Almost to a fault.
Almost to a fault. It's almost like they're saying, we don't want them to take the title literally. We want them to know and be sure that it's metaphorical baggage. I am slightly
surprised that they didn't, so that she can leave it behind at some point, and so she's leaving her baggage behind.
This show has got better writing than that.
I don't know. Sometimes it's very on the nose.
No, but when it's on the nose, it always plays because it's really true on the nose stuff, though. That's a bullshit metaphor.
It's not a metaphor if it's literal.
Yeah, but the whole thing is a metaphor for her actually leaving a real, or metaphorical baggage behind.
I get it, but they don't have to play it like that in the episode, but just have it there as the joke.
Whereas when she sees the Salem sign, that's a bit on the nose, but it lands because it's true. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if the entire thing was set in Boston just because it's near Salem and they could have the Salem sign. In the book, I mean, obviously, I know it's not, the show didn't decide that, but
they just go, yeah, let's run with it.
And if it wasn't in the book, I bet the writer who thought of this in the writer's room that day was just like, guys, I've got an idea for a scene.
Yeah.
Because maybe originally, she wasn't waiting in like the place with all the road signs. Maybe she was hiding in like a factory or something, some other place. And then, no, guys, the road signs, and it ends with Salem.
Someone got some donuts for that idea.
I'd give them a donut for that idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Handmaid's Tale, episode 3, season 2. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. A lot of good discussion in the last couple of episodes, actually. Lots of theories. There was a lot about the scene in episode 1 with the hospital, with the women asking all the questions, and how, some people are pointing out that, this is clearly, there's sort of, again, they're prepping the idea that they're going to be doing the Handmaid's thing. Oh, was this your biological kid? So on and so forth.
Yeah, because you at the time we had this discussion, obviously you read that as feeling racist.
I still think it was. I don't change my mind on that.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has a much more obvious thematic layer, almost.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think there was a lot going on in there. But there was a lot of good comments with that and a lot of insight from various folks. So keep comments coming. They're good to hear other analysis and whatnot. They definitely enhance the experience for, I think, us and everyone else if everyone kind of shares their thematic ideas and whatnot. So, what are you thinking? Are you disagreeing with that?
No, I was just thinking, you on the topic of the racism. Have we seen any commanders that weren't just white?
I don't think we have.
No, that's what I'm like, because the show's not dealt with a lot of race issues because it's been all focused on June, and I'm just thinking, from the ones that we've seen, I think they've all just been white guys.
They have. They don't seem to be prosecuting anyone for not being white, but at the same time, no one seems to be in power.
That's what I'm thinking. It's more institutional racism.
Rather than outright, we're going to kill you for who you are. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So there's... Yeah, maybe we'll explore it later on. Maybe there'll be something to go. And next week we have There's been so little Serena Joy in the Commander this season so far, because they've only had a couple of scenes in the first one, that I'm expecting a full wrath.
Yeah, it's got to happen, right?
Yeah. Serena Joy Strikes Back. That's next week's episode. So, thanks very much for watching, guys. On patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the channel, like and subscribe, all the usual stuff. That's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?